Welcome to the Credit Union Business News Podcast, the only all business, all digital resource for credit unions. This episode is sponsored by Bator Training and Consulting. We create environments where employees actually want to come to work and members want to keep coming back. I am Kbator, your host for the Credit Union Business News Podcast, and I have yet another great guest. Let me tell you about her. Her name is Shondell Varcianna, and she is the CEO and founder of Varcimedia. She's been running that company since 2014, and she provides content writing services to financial institutions. So she's a content writer, strategist, marketer, and just as important, she is a fellow Credit Union Business Magazine writer and contributor like I have been for years. It's great to finally actually talk to you, Shondell. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, you have a little bit of a leg up being in Atlanta and me being in Los Angeles. I'm on my first cup of coffee. You're probably already done with the pot.
Yes, we're going to have lunch after we're finished here.
There you go. There you go. I'm going to have breakfast after we finish here. But be that as it may, writing content, especially in the credit union industry, financial institutions in general, it's critical. But I believe in working with service-based businesses, it's really, really key for credit unions. How did you get involved in writing content for other institutions?
So it started a while ago. I've been working in the financial services industry for right out of high school. I started working for one of the largest banks. I'm originally from Canada, so I was born and raised.
I saw that on your bio. You're a Toronto girl, if I remember it right. So you like a big Maple Leaf fan? Are you happy hockey spec? I'm sorry.
Toronto Raptors basketball.
Ah, got it. Yeah. I heard they won something like last year.
Oh, you heard. I'm sure you did.
I'm a Chicago Bulls fan from the 90s. Basketball basically stopped after Jordan retired. But anyhow, continue, Raptor fan.
Yes, I love my Raptors. So I was born and raised in Toronto, and right out of high school, I started working for a bank called the Bank of Montreal. That's the oldest bank in Canada, and worked my way up there. And then I left there and started working for a company called Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. They are the same thing as PMI here, private mortgage insurance, same thing. So while I was there, I had a house that I was living in, and I had a rental property, and I paid off both of those mortgages in a short period of time. Nice. So my girlfriend had suggested that I, help other people do the same thing. And I didn't know, I'm always open to helping people, but I had no clue, how do I do that? What do I do? And she suggested that I start blogging. And that's how I was introduced to the whole blogging world. Right. So I started that. I taught myself how to blog, taught myself how to create a website, did that. And then I became part of the whole personal finance community. And that led to a lot of opportunities. Magazines started contacting me, radio stations started contacting me, and just wanting to hear my story. And then that led to me working with a lady by the name of Gail Vaz-Oxlade. She's the Susie Orman of Canada.
Ah, okay.
Once I started working with her, companies started contacting me, wanting me to write for them. Now, I didn't even know you can get paid to do this. I was just doing it just because my friend suggested. And I thought, you know what? If I have something that I did that worked for me, why not try to help other people? That was my only goal. I was not thinking it would turn into a business or to make money. I was just thinking, why not try to help somebody else? And so companies started contacting me, and I started getting so busy. And at the time, I was still working for Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So I couldn't, handle all the business that I was getting. So my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, but my husband now, he suggested that I just hire writers. And that's literally what I did. And it just grew and grew. And we brought the business to Atlanta just because I absolutely love it here. And we've been here for 6 years. And that's how it grew. It was just my background with financial institutions. Throughout my career, I had worked with credit unions, mortgage companies, real estate agents, brokers. I've worked the whole gamut of the industry. But what I found, the main reason why I wanted to start the company was what I found was when I was blogging and helping people and answering questions and giving people advice on how to get a mortgage, how to pay off their mortgage quickly and things like that, a lot of people were coming to me for advice, but coming to me for advice because they wanted to know my journey, not coming to me for advice because I worked in the industry.
Sure.
So I knew there was a gap because working in a financial institution, working in a bank and so forth, there's so much information in there so many experts in there, but the information is not getting out to the public. It's not getting out to their ideal customer. And I realized that when I was part of the whole personal finance group, and
Sure.
naturally people in those groups are wanting to buy cars, they're wanting to get mortgages, they're wanting to invest their money, but they were not going to banks and credit unions for that advice. They were going to people who they found online, which happened to be me because I was online. So there was a disconnect there, and I knew that if I could help bridge that gap for financial institutions to get their message out there, because there's so much information in there, and help them get that out there to their ideal customer, then I have something here, and that's
Right.
how the got started.
Right, right. So, well, I love your journey, by the way. I love hearing it because being an entrepreneur myself, I always am very, very interested as to how people got from A to B to C. You know, I was a brain surgeon, and now all of a sudden I own 5 restaurants. So
Completely different. Just like me.
well, yours is a little bit more aligned than
Oh,
my example. Uh, but most importantly, did you go from Toronto to Atlanta for the better food?
I went. Okay, so I don't know if I would say the food's better in Atlanta, because in Toronto it's very multicultural. So you can have
Uh,
Chinese food today, Indian food tomorrow, Greek food Wednesday, Portuguese food Thursday.
yeah,
So it's very multicultural. So if you're a foodie, I would say Toronto is probably better for the food. I'm not a foodie at all, but that's definitely not the reason why I moved. But there were many reasons. I came to Atlanta when I was 21 for the first time. My best friend had moved here, and I came here, and it was just night and day. Like, it was just an awakening for
mm,
me in terms of the mindset of people, in terms of, you meet people here that own banks. I mean, in
yeah,
Canada, there are like 7 banks, and they're not owned by
that's it. Yeah,
and it's just, no, like you'll meet people here that own, 5, 6 McDonald's franchise restaurants. I don't
right,
know anyone who even owns a convenience store in Toronto. It's night and day in terms of here. It's run by small businesses.
hmm,
In Canada, Ontario, the majority of Canada, it's run by large corporations. So you
right,
meet people that the average person gets a job and stays there for 20, 30 years and then retires. Nothing wrong with that, but that's all I knew, because that's all
right,
I've ever seen. Versus here, it's run by small businesses. So you can work for a company and the CEO. I mean,
right,
when I was working for any of the companies, the CEO was about 10 people from where I was.
yeah,
So, the level of hierarchy was different. So it's a different mindset here. And I was really attracted to the culture and how people thought, and just seeing people that were just killing it in business.
right,
I knew that this was a place that I wanted to be. Plus the weather and cost of living. Those are
right.
the other main reasons why I wanted to move here as well. Toronto's extremely expensive and extremely cold.
Yeah, yeah, definitely weather. I'm a Chicago
Oh,
boy myself, and I always kind of thought of Toronto as the Canadian version of Chicago.
oh yeah,
But so basically, if you want a good poutine, go to Toronto. If you want a great capitalistic, entrepreneurial, cultural experience, go to Atlanta. Got it.
yeah.
Uh,
Go to Toronto in July, not February.
yes, 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 exactly. Or maybe October when it's just
You
turning.
might get some snow.
I know, I know. It's like that in Chicago too, another lake city.
Yeah.
Um, but you kind of referred to it a couple times in the act of blogging and writing, and even like for instance in Canada, at a bank, the customer, may be like 15 levels removed from the CEO. At a credit union, the member may be like 2 or 3 levels removed from the CEO. So this industry has always been about making a human connection, whether they called it that or not. Yeah, how does writing and producing the right content help to make a real human interaction, make a real human connection between the member and the credit union brand?
It helps because the content that you should be putting out is content that your ideal customer wants to know, wants to consume. So it's never content that you necessarily like, but it's content that your ideal customer likes. So the best way to describe that is answer questions that they have, be a part of the conversation that they are having. For example, Nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to buy a house today, right? They've probably stalked Zillow.com and Realtor.com to check out different neighborhoods, check out prices. They've probably spoken to their friends and family, getting some advice. They've researched online. They want to know what their minimum down payment is. They want to know, how could I get into that 4 bedroom, 3 bath house that I've been eyeing. So they're asking a lot of questions before they actually, buy that house.
Sure.
And as a credit union, you want to be a part of that conversation that they're having, answer the questions that they're having. And that's how you're able to create content that will resonate with them, because you're getting in front of them before you even start to create content, and you're being a part of that conversation. You're having conversations with them. So you know what they want based on the questions that they're asking, based on what they're talking about. So this is where relationship comes in. And that's what credit unions are great at, because they're local, they're all about their local community. They know their ideal customer, they're friends with their ideal customer. So that's what I mean by, having that relationship, having a relationship with someone. You know what they want because you're friends with them, you talk to them, and that's the kind of content you want to create, and that's the kind of content that will resonate with them.
Yeah, great point, Shondell. One of the best branding lessons that I ever received, and this was, I'm going to date myself. This is probably at least a decade and a half, maybe even 2 decades old. When I was working in marketing, and the one of the C-level executives was in a room, and we were saying, we're having a real rough time with this campaign and the wording and how to introduce it. And he just said, point blank, and it was so simple but so poignant, is just make it all about them.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, who cares what we think are the
Yeah.
great features and benefits? What are they really worried about? And if you create that type of writing, especially if you can write in a way that's conversational, I think it's, in my opinion, and I've seen this too, that type of writing can really connect, especially with that millennial market that so many credit unions want to engage with, because if your writing feels like it's a conversation and is answering the question that they already have, you know they'll appreciate it, because they can go and they can consume that content on their own time
Yes.
and in their own way, and then come and ask the questions that they really, really need to ask, that are personal to them. At least that's kind of how I see it. Am I on track, or am I
Yeah,
completely off
absolutely.
base?
Well, absolutely. And then what you're doing with content that resonates with your customers and answers their questions is you're leading them right back to you without even
Sure.
having to ask them for the business. If you are constantly providing valuable information to your ideal customer, you're constantly answering their questions that they have, they'll feel like they'll feel like they owe you something because you've been giving so much.
Yeah.
So naturally they will come to you when they're ready to buy a house, because you're in front of them nonstop, answering the
Sure.
questions that they have. So it's all a holistic approach at
Hmm.
the end of the day. But it's the consistency of being a part of that conversation that they're having, over a period of time.
Now, a word from our sponsor, Bator Training and Consulting. It's pretty clear that due to COVID-19, it's going to be a long time before any large in-person events will be available in the credit union industry. You may not even want to count on having the GAC or any other conferences in 2021. Sure, there are a number of quality online options to learn, but what about those conversations with your peers during the conference coffee breaks, during lunch, and at the end of the day over dinner? Some might say that was the most valuable aspect of attending an in-person event. That's why we created the Credit Union Business News online collaboration group. The program is based upon the concept of open space technology, a technique I have used successfully within the Police Officers Credit Union Association for years. It's in essence a formalized coffee break conversation that has specific topics that are critical to the credit union industry today. Would you like to learn more about being a part of it? Then send an email directly to me, Ken Bator, at Kbator, Bator, at btcinc.net. I'll be happy to give you more information and invite you to be a guest during the next Credit Union Business News online collaboration group. You know you want to be part of the conversation.
And I'll tell you a quick story.
Please.
When I was working at Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, I remember I was saying it's the same thing as PMI. So my job was, I had my client base was credit unions, mortgage brokers, banks. It was the whole gamut, but the whole financial industry. And my job was to educate them on the insurance products that we had, so that of course they can choose us versus our competitor. And I had a client that for the life of me, I could not get this person. I could not, like, we would, take people to lunch and do events and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I was working on building relationships with this particular client because they were a huge, they were huge in Toronto at the time. So I was really wanting them to use our services. And I knew our services were better than our competitors. And I tried for probably about 2 years to get this particular customer. And I couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting him. And one day we went to lunch and I said, why isn't that you're not using our services? And he said, your services are actually better than your competitors, but I'm friends with your competitor.
Yeah.
Our kids play together. They're over at my house for him and his wife
Right.
come to my house and they barbecue. My wife is friends with his wife. I couldn't even compete. Like at the time, I wasn't even
Yeah.
married. I didn't have kids. But the point that I'm trying to make is, it
Yeah.
didn't matter what I did or who I was. I didn't have a strong enough relationship with him, and that was the sole reason why we didn't.
Yeah. Well, did you invite him over for a barbecue and rent somebody else's kids?
I should have. I didn't think about known you then. You would have gave me that tip.
Yeah. I
I'm sure I could have found something that we connected with and built that relationship, but it hit me at that moment, the power of having a personal relationship with people. People will use your products and services even if it's not as good as someone else's, simply because of the way you make them feel, because you have a relationship with them. They know you. They'll feel like they're almost cheating if they use somebody else's, even if someone else's products or services are a little bit better.
Yeah, it reminds me of the 90s when I worked at a corporate credit union and much like you tried to sell services to credit unions around the state of Illinois and beyond. And around that time, there were these, old cronies that we called basically like the golf outing clique.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
they were CEOs, and they played golf and they were really good, and unless you were really good at golf and were very meticulous at the game, you didn't get into that clique. So a person could be completely unknowledgeable and frankly kind of an ass, but really know how to play golf and get into that clique and penetrate it. It was like a running joke. You'd have the same, like, I don't know, like 16 to 20 guys running credit unions in Illinois, and every golf outing around Chicago, you'd see them, even if it wasn't their chapter. Even sometimes in Southern Illinois, you'd go like 200 miles away. Go, Mike, you're at another outing. Who's running your credit union? Anyhow, so
they were networking. They knew that it was about relationship. They knew they had to be there.
Right. I think that at least the CEOs, they just wanted to golf instead of actually doing real work. But anyhow, that was the 90s. Sorry for going down the rabbit hole there.
Yeah.
But going back to going back to content, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see credit unions make with content today?
Writing what they want, and content is not just writing. It could be audio. This is content that we're doing
exactly.
Right now. So it's video, it's audio, it's infographics, it's pictures, it's memes, it's GIFs. There's content is a variety of different things. But what I see most, the number one mistake I would say is posting content that you like versus content that your customer wants. Huge difference. It doesn't matter what you like, and I don't mean that to come across as
no, you're right. Yeah.
But people care about themselves most. So you want to also you always want to think about that. It's all about the customer. Period. There's no gray area. It's about them, and the more you know about them, the more you can serve them. And at the end of the day, as long as you're serving them, you will always get the business. If your mind is always focused on what your ideal customer wants, getting to know them inside out, speaking their language, the business will come because you'll always be in front of them. You'll always be a part of that conversation that they're having. So that's the number one thing that I see is, and that usually comes from not knowing your ideal customer well enough.
Mm.
Because once you know your ideal customer well enough, you can't help but post content that they like, right? It wouldn't make sense to post what you like when you know what
Right.
they like. So it's part of not knowing them well enough. So you're posting what you think they want versus what you know they
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you. And when you have no clue, sometimes you end up posting things that even you don't like. well, I
want.
think.
Which is not okay.
Well, I love what you said that it's not just writing. That people think of content, and some folks automatically think of blogging or marketing content or messaging and things of that nature. But the fact is, when it comes to branding content,
I'm so
um,
sorry.
that
My daughter just walked in. My
hi
apologies.
there. I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna edit that out.
My apologies. My door was locked and she's figured out how to open my door.
Good for her.
No, not good for her.
can,
Stop
can,
stop encouraging that bad
Can
behavior.
you figure out how to get into the vault of the credit union down the street too? That could be really useful.
Not for our family. Not when the police are knocking at our door.
Yeah. Well, that's your problem. Uh, train of thought. Get back, Ken.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about how you were talking about how everything is in essence content, pictures and so forth, because they're all telling a story. They're all part of branding.
Yes.
And I think back, just I want to say about 3-4 years ago, I had a potential client, and we did a whole what I call a B plus C plus S audit. We audited
Yes.
their brand and culture and strategy, and their website looked like it was built when CompuServe first came out,
Oh, really?
or AOL dial-up. It was ridiculous, and they only had one picture in the entire website, one picture, and that one picture was a picture of their loan branch,
Yes.
and it was a picture outside. The branch looked like it was a dental office with no signage at all.
Yeah.
There were no cars in the parking lot. There were no individuals that you could see in the window or walking into the branch or outside on the sidewalk. And I said to him, I tried to say to him as nice as I could, but it always doesn't come off that way. Is you have one picture that looks like a dental office that nobody wants to go to because you have no cars and no people in the picture. So how does that make me as a member or potential member want to actually go there or even look at another page of your website? And then they got pissed at me and never worked with me again. But anyhow, that's I think that just goes to you can't enlighten the unconscious sometimes. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. It's definitely um it's difficult at times because you want to make sure that um you're letting them know that it's not about them, it's about the customer.
yeah,
And I think too, because what I found is banks have been around for so long, and what may have worked 20 years ago doesn't necessarily work today, right?
yeah,
Everybody's online today. So you have to have some type of online presence. And I always say you have to show up where your customers are.
right.
That's what that matters. Show up where they are. Because a question that I get a lot too is, should I be on TikTok because TikTok is the newest, social media
Yeah,
platform?
and send all your information to China. Yeah, but anyhow, continue.
But my answer is always only if your target audience is on TikTok. If they're not on TikTok, it doesn't matter what new social media
Right.
site. You want to always be where they are, and that's where the focus needs to be. Not just because something new came out, it doesn't mean your target audience is there. First, figure out if they're there, and if they are, show up there. If they're not, don't.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's basically like renting a theater or going into a venue that is where none of your fans are even
Exactly.
around.
Exactly. Why would you even waste your time?
Yeah.
It is a waste of time. And even though, a lot of people may be there, but they're not people that are going to use your services. They're not people that are going to get a mortgage. They're not people that are going to get a car
Right.
loan. You don't want to be there.
Exactly. Exactly. So I probably already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a number one tip for credit unions out there on what they should be doing with their content?
Yes, get to know their audience and create content that their audience wants to know. That's
Exactly.
the number one tip. And like I said before, content doesn't always have to be um, because like we specialize in blog posts and the written content,
Hmm.
but content could be so many different things. It could be inspirational, it could be motivational, it could be answering their questions. But the whatever content that you're providing, it should resonate with who you are providing that content for.
Right.
And the only way it will resonate is if you know who the audience is, if you know them like you know your friends. And that's where we are right now in society. We're into authentic
Hmm.
relationships, genuine relationships. How well does this brand know me as an individual? People want to feel heard. They want to be seen. They want to know that they're important. And people will know they're important when you know who they are and you're providing information that resonates with them.
Exactly. Great points. Last question for you, Shondell, is for our audience that could really tap into your expertise. How best can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot because my ideal customer is on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
So Shondell Varcianna, you could just Google me on LinkedIn. My website, varcimedia.com, VARCI media.com. A lot of free information on there. I've got a blog checklist, which is just goes through the tips that we have found works when creating a blog post over the years of just, writing for our clients, blogging for our clients. There's a quick tip sheet, a one pager that you could download for free. There's also a guide that I created for free as well. That goes into the nitty gritty of exactly what we do in terms of creating content and what works and what doesn't work. Feel free to download both of those for free and get started with content.
Awesome. Awesome job. Awesome tips and an awesome conversation with you this morning, Shondell.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure's been all mine. Thank you again. And thank you to all of you that have either watched or listened to this episode of the Credit Union Business News Podcast. And we will be back with you in about 2 weeks with another great episode. Take care. Learn more about Credit Union Business News at creditunionbusiness.com. Suggestions for the Credit Union Business News podcast can be directed to Tim O'Hara at tim@cubusiness.com or Ken Bator at Kbator, Bator, at btcinc.net. To learn more about this episode's sponsor, please go to btcinc.net.